Your data has secrets. Secrets that could change everything if you only knew where to look. Welcome to the Data Secrets Podcast. Welcome to the Data Secrets Podcast, where we uncover how business leaders crack the code, find truth in their data, and turn insight into action. Today's guest is Sairam Sundaresan. He's an AI engineer. He's worked at Qualcomm, Intel, and now he's an engineering manager working on autonomous vehicles. And he's about to release a book. Sai, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nathan. It's great to be here.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your story and, what you're up to today?
For me, this journey in AI has been, 15 years long so far. And I've sort of seen the evolution from traditional machine learning, as we used to call it. Like, I kind of sound like a dinosaur. But and now you have these modern neural networks. So it's been an amazing journey where I've got to see different inflection points where the technology has changed so much. And along the way, I just learned a lot and worked with some incredible people. So that's been my journey. And about myself, I'm an engineer at heart, and I love problem solving. And more than that, I actually love to teach. So that's how I started writing and explaining concepts to first an audience in my newsletter, and now hopefully to a larger audience through the book. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far.
That's amazing. What would you say inspires you to do what you do?
At first, it was to learn and understand how things work. I think that's always been the central pull for me. Just uncovering how something works behind the scenes, it's always given me tremendous joy. And when I realized that you could actually teach machines to understand the world around us, that was just incredible. And I wanted to learn all about that. And now I sort of take that in the reverse way, where I'm trying to help humans understand machines through my writing. So it's kind of been an interesting twist on that sense.
Yeah, so you're like the interpreter.
The translator.
Yes. Like, all right, machines, here's what the people want. And it's like, all right, people, here's how you understand the machines. That's
pretty much.
That's awesome. All right, let's talk a little bit about, so in your current role, leading a team of engineers, building software that helps a car understand the world around it. How do you organize work to make that happen? Like, how is your team structured? How do you engage with the rest of the company? Like, just help us. 'Cause I've worked in kind of business intelligence and data analytics for a long time. But on the product side, using data and leveraging AI, like how do you guys do that in your current situation?
Well, at the outset, it's a lot of hands that come together to make a software release, especially in the autonomous sector, because safety and security is paramount. And there are a lot of moving parts, right from capturing data that needs to be cleaned, curated, processed, stored, and then for the algorithm teams to work on it, and then train a model, and then make sure the model's doing what it's supposed to, and then for the model to be shipped, optimized, and then shipped into vehicles. So in terms of the structure, there's a lot of different units or departments, if you'd like to call them, where each department focuses on a certain aspect of the pipeline. I lead the algorithm side. So my focus is on making sure the team is using the data that we get and training a model that solves autonomous perception, where we have different things a car needs to worry about, right? A car has to know if there are obstacles along the way. Those obstacles could be pedestrians, it could be a traffic cone, it could be a pillar, it could be another car, and then it also needs to worry about ground markings, like is it a turn, is it a stop sign, on the road, or conversely on the side of the road where you have these signs. And then of course there's this notion of path planning of where you have to figure out whether a car, what's the route from the where the person gets off and where the car needs to go and park itself. So a lot of moving parts, and definitely not one person job. So in that sense, I'm really blessed to be working with a highly talented team, and there's a lot of folks who contribute towards the success of these products. So from a structure perspective, that's like a high level structure, but happy to give
Yeah, no,
clarity on.
I have so many questions.
Okay, that's always good.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, you mentioned source data collecting, cleaning.
Mm.
Is that from car like so
Yes.
you go I just got back from San Francisco and you see the Zoox cars so they have the little buses, but they also have other ones with a ton of sensors all over it with a human in the driver's seat going around. Is that where is that where you're collecting the data from, or are you buying data from some of those companies as well and sourcing
So
that?
uh, purely for certain reasons, I can't reveal
Sure. Okay.
some of these aspects. But what I can say is that the data is collected from a very diverse set of places and conditions, so that at the end of the day, right? I mean, if you think about it from the user's perspective, we can't tell them you can only drive here in this particular area. You have to, they've bought a car and they have the freedom to drive it wherever roads are there, and therefore we need to make sure our data has the coverage of different types of scenarios, different types of weather conditions, different types of seasons, all kinds of
Yeah.
things. So there's a lot that goes into planning what goes into the data set.
Yeah, it's funny. I spend a lot of time in San Francisco, and it is, the weather there is almost always perfect. There's some
And then
rain.
suddenly drops by 10-20 degrees once you're very close to the bridge.
Yeah. But I live in Colorado, and Colorado, it could be June and we get a random snowstorm, right? And so I feel like a lot of times, you know, these autonomous vehicles are being developed in. I also drive a Tesla, right? And so
Mm.
and it's using it's camera based,
Mm.
and so as soon as it starts snowing, uh, it's blind effectively, and it's like, oh, I can't do cruise control anymore. Sorry. It's
Mm.
like, what? So I think that's the challenge of
It
designing
is.
something in a place where the conditions are a certain way, and
Mm.
maybe that's very intentional, right? Like we're doing a very hard thing, and therefore we need a controlled environment to start from, and then later we'll teach it how to drive in the mountains and in the snow. I don't know, but that's just such a fascinating world.
It's a very challenging problem, no doubt. And
Yeah.
yeah, and at the end of the day, you want the driver and the people around the vehicle to be safe, right? That's the
Yes.
most important thing. And if that means that you say you can't use the vehicle in some very adverse conditions, then that maybe in that context might be the right call. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very challenging problem.
Yeah, and so I imagine on the algorithms team, you're also considering kind of the ethical implications of, do I like, if there's a baby and a old person in the middle of the road and I have to swerve and hit one of them, like which one do I hit? Like
Oh, that's a that's a very tricky question, and one I think I will swerve away from.
fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so let's get into some of your data secret stories. So let's just start with this first question here. So what was an insight that surprised you, like when you first started digging into data, or maybe not the first time, but like uh, when you were maybe at a new company and you
Hmm.
started digging into the data, and um, yeah, what was a secret that you uncovered?
I think the most interesting insight came when I sort of transitioned from, say, school into the industry, when I started looking at data. Because in school you have toy data sets which are, for the most part, well curated, and they're there to teach you a particular concept. But then the moment you step into the industry, you aren't spoon fed anymore. And you have to do the cleaning and the curating, and you have to spend time with the data. And the longer you spend time, the more insights you uncover, and the more you realize. I mean, I feel like maybe with the deep learning side of things these days, maybe there isn't as much emphasis as there might have been previously with traditional machine learning, where you had to do feature engineering and extract features before you were able to train these models. And that, to be fair, I'm glad that I was there during that time, so that allowed me to um, really spend a lot of time. And often you find hidden patterns, like you might be thinking the model is like definitely going to focus on some particular color or some particular part of the text, but then what you realize is it's actually focusing on some background thing that just happens to be there all the time. And just uncovering stuff like that has been very, very interesting. And so, yeah, basic lesson was spend more time with the data. The more you do, the more you learn.
Yeah. Was there ever a moment when the data contradicted what you believed to be true, or like instinctually made sense to you?
Yeah. So, let me give you an example, right? So, imagine that you are trying to detect pedestrians, and you have you have a very diverse data set, and everything's good. You have cleaned it, and you're making sure there's no class imbalance, all of that stuff. And then you think, okay, the model's going to focus on things that are vertical, mostly because people are walking in the data set a lot, or it's going to focus on bright colors, or it's going to focus on thinner objects. But then there was this very weird thing that I saw where it was focusing on like transitions, like light transitions, which was super weird. As in, whenever there was a transition from light to dark or dark to light, the model was somehow focusing on that particular aspect, which was very strange because we hadn't, told them. Obviously, we don't tell the model what to learn, but it was that was a dominant feature. That was not the actual the limbs or the head or the other aspects that you would typically expect a model. And we found out that was because of how the camera was positioned, and it was like the shadows were much more like between frames, the shadows moved a lot more than the person, for like in a very weird angle. And so the model was thinking, okay, I have to focus on that because that correlates with the person being next to the shadow, or some. That's how we made sense of it. And just it contradicted everything I thought the model would be focusing on, which is like the obvious stuff.
That's interesting. I guess I've not, you said something, obviously you don't tell the model what to learn. That's not obvious to me. I guess
No, like what I meant to say
more.
is, like, if you think about traditional software versus machine learning, right? In traditional software, we program the rules. We explicitly say, if this happens, then do this.
Like
Whereas
deterministic.
exactly. And in machine learning, it's kind of we say, this is the input, this is what I expect as output. Now you go figure out the rules. So we don't tell it what to learn to figure out the rules. And in that sense, but we can hint. Like in feature engineering, we're saying really focus on these particular aspects. I think they're very important for you. But with neural networks, it's much more where the model is trying to figure these out from a very large volume of data.
Interesting. What about so we're always focused on kind of the business impacts, and the data tells us something, and by itself that's not super valuable, but if you go take that and you do something with it, then that's where the value comes from. So was there a time when that happened, where it surfaced something and you were able to go make like a real world business impact?
I can give you a sort of partial story because I can't reveal too many details, but I will give you a partial story.
You're Mr. Secret, Sai. It's okay. It's okay.
So there was a project where we were working on scanning people and objects, and this was around the time frame of the original Kinect. If for any, and that might be dating myself, like. But this is the time when your so-called depth cameras were this big, and there was no way for them to fit inside a phone or a tablet. And we had developed a very interesting scanning algorithm that was working on device, not on the cloud, and that was already USP. But the challenge we had was the data, like the camera has its own white balancing and color correction technology, and it's and every device that a real world person would use has a different algorithm baked in. It depends on who's manufacturing the phone or the tablet. And so one of the things that I hadn't accounted for and was the fact that when you apply those corrections, your scan needs to be skinned. Like in graphics terms, you would first create a 3D mesh of whatever you're scanning that creates the volume, the structure, and then you'd paint it with the images, right? You'd add color and texture to the 3D mesh so that it looks like a person or an object from the images that you use for the scan. But if the images all have different auto white balance and different color corrections, it's going to look like, you're going to see the seams, you're going to see all of the issues. And so that was something that turned into a very interesting business use case, because fixing that problem, which was completely tangential to this actual scanning thing, like if you think about the actual value, it's like making the scanning faster and more accurate. But from a perception perspective, for somebody who's using the scanner, you want them to be able to say, that looks exactly like the object or the person. And this was ruining that experience. So from that perspective, it was a tangential problem, but fixing it by looking at the data, understanding what was going on, added business value. And that's a story that hopefully can convey that.
That's interesting. Yeah. All right, let's pivot to the dark side of data secrets, the data horror story. Dun, dun, dun. And so, so this is ideally a story where something went wrong, or, we were trusting this data, but oh my gosh, it was sourced from the wrong place, or there was a wrong assumption made, or, or all of production went down because of this mistake, or, yeah. What was your data horror story?
So one that immediately comes to mind is a case of data leak where we had trained an algorithm that was like, we had spent weeks like tuning it and making sure that all the KPIs were good, the model was generalizing well, and it was doing well on the validation set, which is very important for us. And we ensured that the validation set was decently, it had decent coverage. And we saw the KPIs, we saw the visuals where and everything made sense. And so the model went out into the world, and our world came crashing down because yeah, all of a sudden the model was like detecting things that weren't there in the real world, and it wasn't detecting things that were actually there. And it didn't make any sense. We were racking our brains, and it just turns out that through sort of an automated process that was earlier in the pipeline, some of the data in the training set had found its way into the validation set, and it was very, very difficult to find that because of the sheer volume of data that we were using. But that gave us the false sense of security that our model was good, and we had spent weeks optimizing it to that data set. And thankfully, what we did is we did a rollback, and we also had to do a retraining, because now your model, you can't use those weights anymore, because the training sets in your validation set already has part of the training set, and therefore you need to do clean reset and start over again. So that cost us a lot of time, but that was a lesson well learned, because especially with larger models, you're looking at weeks, you're not looking at days, and that's for a customer, for a business use case, that's a lot of time. And it's like, measure twice, cut once. That was the real horror story I learned.
Wow. Yeah, I was trying to think of like a metaphor for that. It's like if you were teaching a kid to read, and
you
you
gave
only
them the
taught
exam
them
question paper, and you said, learn all this, and then they show up.
Yeah, learn all these words with ah sounds, and then then you give them a test, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I can read all the words."
Yeah.
And it's like, "Great, all right, now go read the dictionary." And it's like,
Exactly
I've
right.
never learned how to read these s sounds. Yeah, so that's interesting. Okay. It just seems like the world is moving so fast, and it's just
It is.
accelerating.
It
Like
is.
we're in such a different world than we were 2 years ago.
It
It's
feels that
insane.
way, doesn't it? Like, I mean, um, now we can't imagine how we would function without one of these chatbots helping us with
Right.
writing emails or questions, or like answering questions and whatnot. And yet, just like 3 years ago, you would have to do the grunt work and go on
Yeah.
Wikipedia or elsewhere to find answers.
Yeah. ChatGPT is my best friend, my therapist, and my business coach, all in the same. Yeah, so that's a great pivot toward your book. So you're releasing a book called AI for the Rest of Us.
Hmm.
Yeah, so could you just give our listeners a sense for like what is the premise of the book and who's it for and what are you hoping for people who read it?
Sure. So the book is intended for primarily three sets of people. The first set are the people in and around the tech industry, but who don't come from a software background or don't have a deeply mathematical background. So generally, what I've noticed is in as far as AI books are concerned, they either approach it from code. So then people who are good at programming instantly understand the concepts because code is the teacher, or you have people who come from a very strong mathematical background, and so you have these textbooks with equations which are the language in which these ideas are communicated. But then there's a vast number of people, the rest of us, who are in the middle, who neither code or who don't come from a mathematical background. And I wanted to have something there that doesn't dumb things down, and at the same time is explaining everything about how AI works behind the scenes, how all these algorithms from the basics down, to ChatGPT and Midjourney, everything works in plain English in a way that allows you to make smarter decisions. Because if you think about the people who are setting the strategy and the vision in different companies, they need to be speaking the same language as their engineering teams and
Yeah.
understand, have a basic sense of AI literacy. It's not like they need to fine tune a language model. It's great if they can, but that's not a prerequisite. But instead, they should be able to explain why they are choosing a particular path for a product. This is the way we want to, build this company forward. And the second set of people are those engineering teams themselves who are frustrated from trying to explain to their bosses and their bosses' bosses and their bosses' bosses' bosses about why something can't be done and why AI is not a fix all for all of those things. And this book would then be a translator for them to explain in ways that these senior leadership uh, people can understand, and then be connected. And the third set is for people who are just curious about how AI is going to impact their lives and what it means, and understand its strengths and limitations. So that way you are able to make informed decisions, learn how to leverage it for your benefit, and just, you know, keep up with the times, as it were. So that's the point of the book.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it's kind of a translation layer for super technical people to be able to talk to the business and for business people to understand how to talk to the AI engineers.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it comes out later in October
It's
2025.
it's yeah, it's releasing October 30th. So it's
Awesome.
available for pre-order, and yeah, very excited to get it in the hands of people and see what they think.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll have the a link to the Amazon or whatever listing in the show notes. So for folks who want to check it out. All right, we're going to pivot to our KPI corner, our metric mystery theater. This is our lightning round where we talk about KPIs and metrics that really matter. And so, Sai, I'm fascinated to hear your KPIs that you've observed. Or so let's start with the fundamental
Mhm.
KPI in your book.
Rather, the KPI I would say people shouldn't focus on is accuracy. Like if you ask me one fundamental KPI, because that can be very misleading. And in the book, there are quite a few KPIs depending on the topic, because we cover everything from computer vision, natural language recommendation systems. So there's like a whole variety. But I actually say the one KPI you shouldn't over-index on would be accuracy.
Okay. So you should not over-index on accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to be, that's kind of how I live my life as well. So that's perfect. What about a vanity metric?
Accuracy.
Oh, okay.
No, jokes aside, right? I would say it's like anything that makes your model or your product look good, but it's actually hiding the truth. I would say that that's like a vanity metric, and in most oftentimes it's like accuracy or because like take an example. Let's say you are trying to distinguish between in a medical case, right? You're basically saying, is this a case of somebody having a block in their heart or not? And let's say you have 100 examples, and let's say you have 90 examples of has a block and 10 examples of does not have a block. If your model just guesses has a block, it has 90% accuracy, and that's a vanity metric, and that's hiding the truth that your model is really, really terrible at
Yeah.
detecting if someone does not have a block, which is,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's
that's,
almost like
yeah.
you need a counter metric to, so like how good is it how good is it at detecting not a block, right?
Right.
Which would
And class-wise metrics, and that's the thing. Like you have to get into the details, and
yeah.
just a vanity metric is anything that prevents you and gives you that false sense of security that
Yeah.
everything's rosy and good.
Okay, so on the other side of that, what's a more impactful KPI that would be worth tracking?
I'll give you one that I use for my team, and it's questions per week. I usually see how many questions the team asks me, and if they aren't asking as many questions, I feel like then the curiosity and interest has somewhat died down. And if they're asking me a lot of questions, it means that they are motivated and looking forward. So that's a very good signal, and that's some. I
Yeah,
would say, yeah, that's a KPI I love to track.
I like that. Yeah, like it's your curiosity index. All right, what about the weirdest KPI?
I would say behavior change, um,
Tell me more.
because uh, so I would actually like to see is like whenever you have some kind of feature or something you release, like how is the user's behavior changing with it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they adopting it? Are they using it more? Are they trying to break it, play around with it? I mean, it's difficult to quantify it, but it's something that gives you a lot of signal on whether you're building something that they're excited about, or whether something is just, you know, my competitor has it, so here's my version of that thing. So
Yeah.
behavior change. I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah, yeah, but I think it's important, especially like if the goal is behavior change, then measuring that is
Are they, is the behavior changing? That becomes
but
the
also is it the right behavior, right? So
yes,
like
yes.
I used to run a little company and we would incent our people like, hey, if you book a meeting
Mm,
for your client, it's a lead generation kind of thing. Whenever you book a meeting, we'll pay you X dollars, right? And so there was no counter, like how good is that meeting or things like that, right? And
right.
so the behavior changed towards like, yeah, we're booking lots of meetings, and then you go look at the quality,
Mm.
and it's some of them are even like fake. I had to fire somebody because
Wow.
she was gaming the system, and yeah, that was hard,
Wow.
but yeah, behavior
There's there's
change.
actually there's actually a very weird story that goes that might tie into this,
Okay.
which is like there was a time when there were a lot of cobras in a country,
Oh
and
wow.
or
You're
let's
in
just say a
India.
village, in a village,
Yep.
And let's say that the kingdom wanted to get rid of the cobras, like because there's just way too many of them. So they said, for every cobra that you bring, we will
Oh yeah.
reward you with something. And eventually, people started gaming the system because they started breeding cobras. So,
Oh no. Oh
so the
jeez.
population actually soared, and so
Oh
it's like
Lord.
counterproductive. Um,
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, they had that problem in Florida with pythons, but I never heard of people breeding pythons so they could get more bounty. What about your North Star metric? Do you have a good one? Basically the thing that like keeps you centered and focused and moving in the right direction.
I would say clarity, because and especially when it comes to teaching, the thing that I really look for is the message getting through without being distorted, and is understanding, like I'm optimizing for understanding basically. And it's the same when I'm speaking with my teams, with my stakeholders and everyone else. It's, is the message getting through? And so clarity is my not North Star metric.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. I'm really curious where or how you see um, data analytics, kind of like business analytics, being
Mm.
impacted by this world of AI. Be my translator.
I would actually think that data analytics will still be important, but the
Yeah.
role of a data analyst will change.
Yes.
It will evolve, but at the end of the day, right, we're in this weird place where data is the lifeblood of most of these AI models, and we're at a point where being able to extract insights from the data, not for the model to understand, but for our understanding, is becoming just as important. Because if we are feeding these models data and we don't have a clue of the biases in the data, or how the imbalance, or the information that's encoded deep within, if we don't have a clear idea of how that is, you know what it is, and how the data is structured, and how we can present that as a story, as not just as numbers, but go beyond that and just understand, I feel like that's going to put us in a bad place, because the models are going to understand hidden patterns and everything, but if we aren't understanding it so that we can course correct, um, then it's going to be a problem. So the role, I think, will evolve, but the need, I don't think, will change. It's going to be more important. That's my opinion.
Okay. And what advice would you have for somebody who is, let's say they're a data engineer or a data visualization person who's amazing at Tableau or Power BI or some tools like that. Um, Apart from reading your book, which would be step one, what other things should they go learn? Like what general direction would you point them in? YouTube things to search on Google or YouTube or ask
I think
ChatGPT.
I think the answer that always that I give to most people is just spend time with AI and play with the tools that are available, and see, just because there is no real user manual for most of these AI tools. We are sort of writing it
Right.
as we go, and
Yeah.
we find interesting ways to interact with them and uncover some ways where we can get to what we're looking for faster. And so, the more time you spend with it, the better you will be at leveraging it for whatever your occupation may be. So, I think just just even doing that puts you at an advantage compared to the others who may not be as actively using these tools, and interacting with the technology as much. So
Yeah.
that would be my suggestion. And of course, YouTube tutorials and blogs and
Sure.
all of that are fantastic resources, but instead of collecting a lot of these resources and then wondering which where to start and everything, I would just say, just pick a tool that you really like or you're curious about, and just spend a lot of time with it.
Nice. Yeah. Looking at tools like N8N, um, these kind of like workflows,
Mm-hmm.
they look very similar to tools like Alteryx or SSIS, where they're kind of like canvas based,
Mm.
drag and drop, uh, like data comes in, we do some stuff, data goes out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, I would encourage folks to, like, it's very, like, obviously everyone's using ChatGPT. I think
Mm.
you can't stop there,
Yeah.
right? You need to push beyond to, like, what are some other tools out there? Get your hands dirty. And I'm preaching to myself, all right? But,
And
find
me.
like a real, I mean, I think learning any new tool, like
Mm.
whether you're learning Python or N8N or Lovable or any of these, vibe coding things, like you need a project, right? You need like a
Yes.
real world thing that, hey, I want to do this. How can AI help me do this? And so I have a good friend who is toying with that right now.
Mm.
He built uh, a voice agent.
Nice.
Um, well, he didn't. I mean, he's using a voice agent tool to do a business task, where it's, hey, there's this. We need to make a phone call to a particular person, and today's world, it's like a real person picking up the phone and dialing the person and checking on the order or whatever. And he built something that will auto dial the person. He called me on it, and I talked to the
The
agent,
agent. Oh, nice.
and I tried to throw her for a loop. I said, "Oh, I'm going to be late. I had to stop at Buc-ee's and get some food." And she's like, "Okay, well, what time will you arrive?" I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So, uh,
No,
yeah,
you hit on an excellent point there, right? I mean, as the saying goes, scratch your own itch. So pick anything where you spend a lot of manual effort on,
yeah,
and maybe just note down the steps. Like, first I do this, then I do this, and then try to see how you could use AI to do those exact steps, and use a tool that, like your friend did, that
hmm
is easy and something where you can spend time on, and eventually you'll see that you understand how the dots connect, and that's a really great way to, one, solve a problem that's bothering you, and two, actually learn how to use AI and get better.
yeah, awesome. Um, well, Sai, let's land the plane here. How would if people wanted to learn more about you, or you have a newsletter, what would you encourage them to connect with you on or go do?
So I would say, so my newsletter is called Gradient Ascent, and it's on Substack, and it's read by uh, a whole bunch of people across the tech firms in Silicon Valley and worldwide, which I'm very grateful for. And
That's
I
cool.
try to demystify AI in very simple terms and help you keep up to date as much as possible with this crazy technology. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me, just search for my name, and as well on X and all the other socials. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, really enjoy the conversation, and thanks for being on the podcast.
my pleasure, and thanks for your time, Nathan. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right, everybody out there, the truth is there. You just got to keep searching for it. Keep sleuthing. I'll see you out there.